Hello and welcome again to another episode of the Bitcoin News Show. I am your host, Vortex, and you guys are right here on the World Crypto Network YouTube channel. We have an amazing show for you guys tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about the ETF Vault 7, and we got a great article by Jimmy here that we're going to be talking about. So thanks so much, guys, for joining us. I do apologize. We're a little bit late today. But I think we're still going to pull this off. I think we got a great show lined up for you guys. So first, let me introduce our awesome panelists and experts here, or should I say just really, really good enthusiasts, really important enthusiasts to Bitcoin, right? So first, let's introduce Jimmy. How you doing, Jimmy? Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, awesome. We got back on the show Andrew DeSantis. Thanks for joining us. How you doing?
Doing well. How you been?
Awesome, very good. And I'm also going to be talking about my my San Francisco trip a little bit too later in the show. Spoiler. So let's introduce our special guest for the show who joined us even though we're an hour late. Alan Silbert, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Hey, glad to be here.
Awesome. Love the hat. And love the shirt more though. Love the shirt more. The Bitcoin shirt.
Yeah, you have to have one good team in Washington to be happy about, you know.
Awesome. Yeah, my Bitcoin shirt is dirty that I wore to the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup. So unfortunately, I'm stuck with the regular shirt. But let's move on with the show. Alan, thanks so much for joining us again. Listen, I just wanted to have you on the show because I really like all your tweets, and I really liked it specifically about the state of Bitcoin, specifically around the ETF and around the whole block size debate. We seem to align on a lot of issues when it comes to the small blocks and big blocks and everything like that. And so, I really wanted to have you on the show just to see if I can get some more information out of you because we know that you guys are all much smarter than me. So that's why I bring you on the show. So Alan, first, let me just ask you, how did you first get into Bitcoin? And then we'll go into another question. And if anybody else has a question too, but go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, sure. No, my brother Barry got me into Bitcoin. Probably, he started bugging me like late 2012, I think. And then, I was like, yeah, I'll get around to looking at it. And, it was $5, $8, $10, $12. I can specifically remember being in Utah on the way to a ski vacation. He was like frantically tweeting me like, have you looked at it yet? Or it's 15, 18. So I was like, oh, I guess it's when I get home, I should finally look at this. So I made my first purchases in February 2013. I think it was $22 or so from the red phone at the CVS with the operator. And so, yeah, that's how it started.
Oh, the red phone, Alan. Oh man, that brings back so many memories. I think you just tweeted that out or retweeted that the other day about the red phone, man. That was an awesome memory trip down memory lane right there. That was great. Back in the old days, we actually had to use MoneyGram, I think it was, with this big red phone and call up and transfer our money. And oh man, old times. Yet it was only a few years ago. So all right, so I think we can, actually, if anybody doesn't have any questions for Alan, I think we're just going to move right into the topics. I'm excited to talk about what we got going on here. So let's just go right into the ETF, the big ETF that everybody was waiting for. We covered this on the Bitcoin group, and we had a great time. Us all there, Chris Ellis, Blake Anderson, Thomas, Mad Bitcoins, and me. We had a great time, and so we covered it a little bit, and I thought we had great coverage, tone, and everybody was there. So I want to get you guys' information as well. I want to see what everybody's thinking about the ETF now that it's been a while, right? We've had 24 hours now plus to let it sink in and really figure out kind of what it means to us in the Bitcoin community. So we'll go with Alan first on this. Alan, so what do you think of the whole not just ETF, but the whole rollout situation over the last 24 hours? How do you think affected Bitcoin? Is Bitcoin going to die? Are we all doomed?
Yeah. I think the market is saying that we're at 1224 right now. I think we're still alive. So. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I've been watching. It just makes you kind of want to laugh that Bitcoin doesn't really care about any extraneous outside forces. Outside news kind of has less and less impact as time goes on. So yeah, China news. We've kind of seen that over the past couple of years. Just every release kind of has less and less bite, and it's a great thing to see. So
absolutely. So we're still alive. So that's good to hear. Just making sure we're still alive. No, I was really impressed with the resilience of the price as well. I'm sure everybody's going to comment on that. I just love it. I mean, Bitcoin is still here, still kicking, still strong, and we'll see what Andrew has to say about this. What do you think about the ETF and the last 24 hours after it?
So to be completely honest, I was completely consumed with Vault 7 related stuff during the entire thing, and like I mean, for me, the ETF, I don't mind if it goes through. I don't mind if anything on the finance side of Bitcoin works or doesn't work. I'm not speculating on that, if that makes sense. The only speculation I've like really ever done was shorting Ethereum whenever I think it's going to go down, and then buying up Ethereum Classic out of principle because of the fact that they forked. But other than that, you know, buying Bitcoin through the ETF, I think would defeat the purpose of what I kind of see Bitcoin being. If you were to get your dad or somebody for the first time to actually buy Bitcoin, the pitch I don't think would be this is some kind of asset that's going to make you a lot of money for this reason or that reason. I think what you would want to really tell him is this is something, it's like a bearer bond. It's a digital bearer bond. It's something that you can have for yourself. It's something that nobody can take away, and like being a part of the network and actually being a holder versus, you know, having a tracker of the price of the currency itself. My opinion is just, I was indifferent, if that makes sense. It's one of those things that either way, it didn't matter to me.
It didn't matter. Oh man. No. I think for sure. I think there's definitely some merit to that long term. You know, we're gonna probably look back at this as probably just like a little bump in the road. You know, once that 1,200 hump starts getting to be the size of the $250 hump, right? It's like, who cares? It's in the past. So we'll see. I
think there was a lot of risk with it though.
Yeah,
like hacker wise, I would have definitely seen a lot of people going for the funds themselves, if that makes sense. If a lot of money went in. But otherwise, it would have been good for the price, I assume.
Yeah, it would have definitely shot it up. But you know, I think that it might have been shot it up too quickly. We want to take this slow and steady, right? We don't want to just shoot up to the moon only to just crash down and just you know, give those news articles, that mainstream media all the more reason to just be like, Bitcoin crashed on ETF, you know. And so they're already doing that, even though it didn't crash. Really, it's already back up. So you know, I don't want to add too much fuel to the fire. We want to go slow and steady. I think that's the most healthy route for Bitcoin.
I'd argue that your risk of being hacked goes up exponentially with price, and then the fact that Vault 7 came out, that's almost like a multiplier of your risk. So if the price had actually gone up to say 1,700, you would have had a lot of people coming into Bitcoin, and they wouldn't have been coming into Bitcoin, I guess, the way that I would prefer them to come into it. I would prefer that they get a hardware wallet like a Trezor or something like that. I would prefer that they set up Bitcoin in a way that, you know, as they buy more Bitcoin, they educate themselves while they're doing it. I would prefer that they learn about multi-sig, not as this topic that someone pitches them on doing an investment around, and it would be something more like, I want to hold a wallet that's between you and me, and you know, you learn as you go. And I feel like if the price spikes too quickly, a lot of people are going to get burnt. So that was my other view on that.
Sure. Yeah, and that makes total sense. You know, if it goes up too quickly, you're right. I think a lot of people will just join in and get burned because it will have to come down just as fast. So joining us live from San Francisco still is Mr. Chris Ellis. Just wanted to say hi. Say hi to everybody.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you good.
Yes, working.
Awesome.
I don't know.
Oh, we got. Oh no! Look who we got.
Such a clown.
We got Blake in the background. Maybe he can join in if he gets a laptop. All right, cool. So let me go to Jimmy on real quick, and then we'll go to Chris first. So Jimmy, what did you think about the ETF situation and really like the ensuing last 24 hours? What do you think?
Well, so I first want to acknowledge that I think Alan was saying how the price came back up, and that was sort of an indication that you know, Bitcoin doesn't care. I personally read it as sort of more market certainty. You know, we now know the answer, and we're not going to be sort of held to the fire anymore, and this isn't going to be looming over, and all the people that were going to sell or buy or sell based on the ETF are all gone. So that gives other investors sort of more certainty on what's going to happen. So that's how I read that. As far as the ETF itself, I read through the entire decision, and as far as like the main point that struck out to me is that SEC kept saying stuff like, you know, we can't detect market manipulation, and I think that makes a lot of sense. You know, they're a regulation entity, right? They're essentially there to protect us against ourselves, right? Like we want to make sure that you can't buy stuff that we don't approve you of buying. And in that way, I think the decision makes complete sense, because there's no way for them to sort of detect manipulation in Bitcoin to the degree that they would need to as a government entity, like in line with their mission. So in that way, I thought it made sense. And it sort of gave a finality to this. I really can't see the ETF ever coming on again. I know they can apply again, but you know, given the sort of reasoning that the SEC laid out, I really can't see it coming in. I think the one tiny door that they gave is that if there were another market, you know, kind of another market that was willing to give Bitcoin a chance, then they can do some surveillance sharing agreement, and then they may allow it at that point. But that seems to me kind of a remote possibility, and it's a door that seems very close to me, and that again gives a lot more certainty, sort of making the price go a little higher. That's my take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, this is just one more. It's not really an attack on Bitcoin, but it's one more thing that hardens Bitcoin. It's one more thing that we can say, oh yeah, look, they're just going to leave it alone. Now we can just really continue on scaling this thing, get this thing more evolved. And you know, there are other ETFs around the world for Bitcoin. You know, it's just now America is kind of clearly shut for that. And so, like you said, that does give the market much more certainty. We can just kind of all get back to work here and stop worrying about the freaking ETF, the big ETF. And you know, this kind of really does probably set a precedence for, you know, like the coin ETF that's coming up, the approval for that, and another ETFs to follow. So we'll go with Chris Ellis next. What do you think about the ETF, Chris? Is this the last 24 hours? Like, we covered it live there on the WCN, and that was absolutely awesome. And I loved your commentary on that. But what do you think now over the last 24 hours, now that everybody really got it into their system? We got tweets going down. The Twitter sphere is all giving their opinion. What do you think, Chris? What's going on?
Too many opinions. I don't know. The market didn't give a shit. It has stayed up. People try to short it. I'm happy about that. Pay attention to it. It's exactly what I said in the show. And so I was just focusing on work. I didn't care one way or another. But I am interested to know more about, like, somebody was just saying that, what, they're never going to get a chance to do the ETF again? Is this it? So what are the Winkle bosses going to do now? They sued Zuckerberg. They tried to jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon. They got more money than they know what to do with. What are they going to do? Just sit around like eating sushi all day, or what?
I have no idea at this point. Like Winklevoss twins, like what is their next play? It's probably going to be Ethereum. It's probably going to be Ethereum.
Sushi. What are they going to do? Seriously, I never hear them talk about anything. Do you? Like you don't really. They don't comment much on Bitcoin. They're just kind of quiet. You get a press release every now and again.
Oh, I've heard them. You should really listen to them when they give a presentation. It's.
Are you talking about Money 2020 and like 2000? And
I saw them at South by Southwest like 3 years ago talking about Bitcoin, and
that's the one. I hear bad things. I hear bad things about that particular presentation. Yep.
Yeah. But
they're not bad guys.
You know, they're nice people.
Well, we know they're nice people. We're just talking about like they're them and Bitcoin. I mean, you know, they clearly got in early, right? They clearly got in early. They got smart. They got in early, but they just keep trying to marry like the current financial system, and you know, it seems like they're just trying to attach a horse to an automobile. Like this is kind of ridiculous what they keep trying to do. But sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, that's it. I'm done.
yeah. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I think that their approach to Bitcoin is from the world that they're used to. So they're trying to make it fit in with their life and with the people that are around them. So I mean, I think they do a lot of hard work that we don't necessarily know how to do as, like, say, a hacker type guy or entrepreneur type or something like that. So I'm always interested to see what they're doing. But yeah, you're right. I wouldn't have them do a keynote if I was holding an event.
Yeah, at least not a technical keynote, right? Not a technical keynote. I mean,
it was weird, man. They gave a keynote at Money 2020 where they were talking about like how cars are going to be paying cars in the middle of like driving, and people started walking out of the event, and it got really awkward. But then like the next year, Money 2020 was blockchain this, blockchain that, Bitcoin based stuff. They looked really good the next year when everyone basically left out on them the first year, and then the next year it was like all they could talk about was Bitcoin related stuff. So I mean, they've been ahead of the curve, but yeah.
All right. Well, very interesting. Very interesting. I think so. Yeah, I think that you guys are all spot on. I think that the market responded, and the market responded absolutely well. This is a super strong currency now at this point. I mean, China can't stop Bitcoin. The Bitcoin, the ETF, the big huge American ETF can't stop Bitcoin. I don't think really at this point anything can stop Bitcoin. Like not even entire countries, right? Because now China had like another exchange, stop withdrawal. That's like 3 or 4 different exchanges stopping with Bitcoin withdrawal, and the market didn't even care; it just kept going up. And so I think the market understands that something like that is temporary, and Bitcoin is going to be here long, long, long after we're all gone. So I think we can move on to the next article, unless anybody's got anything else to say on the ETF. Nope. Okay, cool. So real quick before we move on, I'd just like to ask if everybody could go ahead and share out the show, Facebook out the show, tweet out the show, let everybody know we're here talking Bitcoin. We got 115 viewers. It keeps ticking up a little bit. Let's get it ticking up some more. We got almost 120 viewers now. And we got a great panelist here. We got everybody talking. We got so much stuff to say. I'm really excited about the rest of the show. We got 2 more topics to go. We got a bunch of people in the chat. Everybody's on the conversation. If everybody could just give us a thumb up or a thumb down, tell us what you really think of the comments. We love talking about the comments, talking about Bitcoin in the comments, and it's how we extend our conversation to you guys, the viewers, since we only are here once every couple of weeks. So we love talking to you guys. I think we can move on here to Vault 7, dun, dun, dun. The next topic. This is the one that I think is going to be really interesting. Andrew's going to have a few things. I'm sure it's going to be fun. I wish Gabriel could join us on this one. He did comment a little bit on the Bitcoin group, so I enjoyed that very much. But I wish he could be here. We'll get him on. We'll get him to talk about it next time he's on. So very cool. So let's go first with Alan. Alan, so the news about Vault 7 hit this week, and it was pretty big, a pretty big revelation, and the world's kind of still soaking it in. There's all sorts of after effects that are happening. I just wanted to get your take, as a Bitcoiner, and on this Vault 7. What do you think? Is this going to affect how does this affect Bitcoin in any way? Does it affect Bitcoin in any way at all? And what do we do? What do we do now, Alan? What do we do now that Vault 7's been released? Tell us, please.
Yeah, I'm certainly no expert on this kind of stuff, but I mean, I don't know. It seems kind of like we're getting desensitized to this crap at this point. It's just, it's I mean, it's definitely getting more and more 1984-ish. I mean, it's, I feel like we're turning to like a surveillance state, but I mean, I don't know, the public seems like they're kind of getting just desensitized to all these kind of releases. And, I mean, personally, I'm kind of scared about my Samsung TV now that's sitting downstairs. I'm not going to be talking in that room anymore, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess everybody kind of is under the assumption at this point that you're just always going to be watched, and we're desensitized. I think it's it's a crazy thing. Hopefully, like the companies will still stick behind their users, and the Apples and the Microsofts will value privacy and security. And I think Apple realizes that if you don't hold your customers' data as absolutely utmost above everything else, then people will go elsewhere. So hopefully they'll stick to that cause.
Yeah, that's a good point. I really hope that the companies are going to stand behind their customers as best as they can. I know that like Bill Gates launched something about having a digital Geneva Convention, and I don't know where we can go from there, but I'm hoping something kind of gives from this. We'll go with Chris next, and then Andrew, and then Jimmy. So Chris, what is your comment on Vault 7 and all of the CIA stuff? I mean, the CIA looking even worse than the NSA. And should I not be talking around my television or not? Like, I'm scared. Chris, tell me what's going on.
I think there is this sort of sense of like ambience, like all these leaks just kind of wash over the general public. And they're sort of generally aware. They have this kind of vague awareness that something is up and they should be paying attention, but there's no real understanding. Like, most people don't understand why this is important. So WikiLeaks can keep releasing all this information all they want, but I don't think 90%, 99% of the people that actually read the headlines ever go into any of the details or any of the links. They're kind of vaguely aware that their TV is spying on them, but they don't care about privacy. And until you get that mainstream engagement, and to get actually people caring about this, there's no incentive for companies to like serve those customers if they can serve the state. And I think Mussolini put it really well in his treatise on fascism. He said that the essence of fascism is really a conflagration of state and industry. Industry can't exist without the state. The state gives it the land, it gives it the populace, and so unless the industry, unless the companies go along with what the state wants, then they don't even get to exist. And I know that they try to be multinational and they try to do this jurisdictional arbitrage, but ultimately they have to be situated somewhere. They have to have that staff from somewhere. Those staff have to have passports. And so I think that all this stuff comes out, and maybe, I don't know, a couple of dozen people on the whole planet bother to read the leaks, and most of those are the journalists that are releasing them, and the only reason they're doing that is because they're paid to. But for me, this stuff doesn't really mean anything until ordinary people start paying attention and waking up to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, very good points. I mean, my parents still give me the same old thing. I got nothing to hide. Like, almost everybody I talk to, I got nothing to hide. Like, they can. I'm like, I mean, did you see the Vault 7? And like, I got nothing to hide.
I tell you what though, when in the 90s, when I was using PGP with my best friend James when I was growing up, everyone said to me just that. Why are you encrypting your emails when all you're really doing to each other is like, do you want to meet up tomorrow? And it's like trying to convey this notion of like encryption by default, like everything should just be encrypted. Like when you send an email, you're essentially sending a postcard. All we're doing is circle jerking right now. Like all this is just a bunch of people that are into infosec computer science talking about what we know is important and talking about these WikiLeaks documents. But until I can persuade that person on the street that this is important, they're not going to care. And there's no financial motivation from these companies to release these kind of products. I went on a rant recently on Twitter and I was asking why there is no end-to-end encryption. Like, why can't I just speak to another human being on the internet? Without having to sign up for a service, without having to register with an email, and certainly not like Telegram where you have to like put your phone number in and dox yourself essentially. You can't even buy a phone in this city without like having a driver's license and giving away all your information. So I just want to be able to talk to another human being on the internet without having to dox myself each and every time.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll go with Andrew DeSantis next on Vault 7, man. What do you think?
It's not good.
The chat's going crazy. Like they're like, that's exactly what my dad said. That's exactly what my mom said. I mean, yeah,
so they're gonna keep saying that, and there's nothing that you're gonna be able to do about it, no matter how much you tell them. I know it sounds corny and it's a cliche by now, but if you take the hero's journey, framework and actually map it to the movie The Matrix, there's no filler. So every single line within that movie actually has a purpose. And the line that would work there is they're so hopelessly dependent on the system that they would fight to defend it. As time goes on and you become used to a normal way of life, there's no changing the habits, and they're right to say they have something to worry about or they don't. And so for the older people, it's not as big of an issue. I'm more worried about our generation. But so, I mean, here's the issue. Let's say that I want to hack you. And let's say that you've put in $10,000 in security work, trying to audit your systems or defend your network. And then let's say that you and a couple of friends happen to have some expertise and somebody might pay you guys like maybe $100,000 to do a security audit as a group. Am I coming through clear?
Yeah, no, you're coming through. It's just okay. The audio is tapping just a little bit on whenever there's any sound, it taps a little bit. So just if you could be aware of that, but keep going. Sorry. Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, so the issue whenever I'm thinking about security and I'm talking to a client is, what is the hacker going to be able to pay to attack you? How much time, how much energy, how much are they able to invest in zero-day exploits to hit you? And if the attacker can invest $250,000 and you have over $250,000, then they're going to try to hit you. And if you haven't put in that much effort in defending yourself, they're always going to beat you.
So the Obama administration invested $100 billion into the CIA's hacking group, period. So all of a sudden, every single person is now going up against $100 billion arsenal. And that's terrifying. That is impossible to defend against level.
That's insane. $100 billion.
Yes. So like just the simple fact that I don't care that the CIA is developing, exploits. I mean, they can do whatever they need to do. But the way I see it is we, in the United States at least, should have a long time ago added a new branch to the military, because putting cyber command inside the Air Force makes no sense, because it's a gun culture. To climb up the ranks there, you have to be able to sharpshoot. Like, it's not about how well you can hack. And then having a secret NSA within the CIA that's not held accountable for what they're doing, I mean, it doesn't benefit the citizens. If you or me are getting hacked and they're going to be spying on us anyways, it would be really nice if they would detect the hack as it's happening and shut it down, because they know of the 0 days. I mean, that would be a really convenient thing to have happen, but instead they're putting all this work into finding it, and then they're getting hacked themselves, and then it's just spreading the tools out among the worst people, and then it's being used back on us. And I mean, just the psychological damage that it can do to society as a whole.
What goes around comes around is what it seemed like. What goes around comes around is what's happening, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've read about 1/3 of all the stuff out so far, and that's 1% of all the stuff that's going to come out, period. And I'm seeing UEFI exploits, firmware, freaking issues with Mac OS. I'm seeing persistent rootkits on the Apple Time Machine stuff. Like, you go to the store, you buy a $600 backup router, the time capsule. You're paying $600 to back all of your Mac's stuff up. And let's say your Mac wasn't, there wasn't an evil maid attack, and you weren't hit with some weird thing like Thunderstrike, which would allow them to actually swap out the firmware on your Mac and then inject themselves into the operating system before it boots, so that you can't even tell that there's a system integrity issue. They can just take the backup of your Mac off of your time capsule, and then they'll have your entire computer, and they can patch it in such a way that you'll never know that they were in there, and you'll just continue backing up thinking you're as secure as can be.
Yeah, but the first problem is, why are you using a Mac in the first place to back up your shit?
Well, we've got to think of the average consumer.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
I mean, they use Macs, and if we're going to move them away from Mac, are we going to send them to Windows? Are we going to teach them how to start using Linux? And these vulnerabilities,
or just direct attached storage and TrueCrypt and starting locally first.
Oh, well, no, I agree with you there. But like a lot of people do have Macintoshes. Like that's a society thing. That's an issue within itself. But just as a whole, it's terrifying. It's terrifying that they've left these holes open this long, and it's terrifying that you don't need the code to actually to do damage. I'm working on rootkits right now from the documentation, and I am far better served by not having the code, because I would be tempted to do some script kiddie type stuff, like not actually put the work into learning it. I'm really worried about browser fonts getting cached in your browser, and then doing privilege escalation, injecting variables into the non-volatile RAM, and then upon restart, injecting zero-day exploits within the firmware that would rewrite themselves in the partition that would be OS reinstall persistent, meaning you could be hit with an attack, remove your operating system, think that you have a perfectly fine hard drive, and it turns out the hacker is still there, and there would have been nothing that you could do about it. And just by mapping exploits to each other in this CIA leak, is looking more and more like these things are possible. And I mean, this is the same firmware that's being used on your ThinkPad, being used on many other computers. So it's irritating. It's a lot of content to go through, and I mean, I've had to shut down every machine that I have. I've had to go buy new machines. I've had to buy all new, media to, audit the machines that I just bought, so then I can audit the other machines. And then anything I find on the machines, I'm starting to like reverse engineer, and it's a very tedious process. I wish, yeah, I wish we had a better structure for cyber, because the way it's set up in the United States right now is terribly inappropriate, and they rely solely on contractors, to be clear. I got offered a contractor job when I was in college. You had to go do clearance stuff, and that just wasn't my thing. And these contractors are young kids. Most of them aren't even the best CS students, like, to be clear. Some of these are like washed up dropouts, and they'll go work for the CIA or the NSA through Booz Allen or some other contractor. And I mean, it's terrifying. I know some of these people, and the fact that they have this entire freaking arsenal, and the fact that they could use the tools that they were taught to develop to steal the rest of the tools, and they've had them for years. These are people that you've probably had over to your house. You don't even realize it.
Well, see here, for me, really, I think the most scariest thing, I think I'm getting some feedback. Oh, yeah, I need a minute. Okay, cool. Yeah. So for me, I think one of the most craziest, scariest things about this fact is that, about this Vault 7 leak, is the fact that they had these exploits leaked for two things, I guess. The one, of course, the fact that they put it all on one central server and it got hacked, right? That was retarded. But really, the biggest thing is they had these zero-day exploits, in some cases for over a year, kept to themselves. They did not tell the hardware community, nowhere. I mean, of course, now they're at the point where they're actually, like, putting people into the companies themselves and just, spying it that way. But seriously, they kept these exploits secret for over a year, and that is just horrible for society, horrible for everybody. We need almost like a digital Geneva Convention so we can prevent shit like that from happening. You cannot have a freaking zero-day exploit to yourself for over a year like that. But sorry, Jimmy, were you going to say something there?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the number of 0 days that the government has is any surprise. I mean, we knew back in Stuxnet, this was like 2011, that they had a lot of 0 days available to them, and they can do whatever they wanted to. We also knew that the NSA was spying on us, right? Like, this isn't new stuff. This is stuff that we already strongly suspected or kind of knew. The big story to me in the Vault 7 is the absolute incompetence of the bureaucracy that's controlling this stuff, right? They allowed themselves to get all this stuff stolen, which to me is like, oh, okay. Well, information is asymmetric, so it tends to do that. But that's sort of where, like, we're talking about all of this stuff, and it's important to use open source software for a lot of these reasons, right? Because you can, at least it has like somebody going through it all the time and trying to find vulnerabilities and things. A couple points I want to make about some things that other people have said in the last 20 minutes. The nothing to hide argument. This pisses me off. Okay, that argument pisses me off. Okay, if you really have nothing to hide, share your entire search history and your tax returns with everyone you know. Okay, who would do that? Nobody would do that. That's just completely ridiculous. Of course you have something to hide. I mean, like, yeah, go share your dick pic with everybody. Like nobody like, very few, maybe a few people do that, but like, to me, that's the stupidest argument like that anyone can say is, I have nothing to hide. Yes, you do. Or otherwise, go tell your coworkers exactly how much you're making. Or
yeah, exactly. Like, why don't you go pay your social security number on a big old building that says with your first name and last name and say, come and get me. I mean, it's true. Sorry, Jimmy, to interrupt, but God, that's such a good comeback to these crazy people's response of, I got nothing to hide. Keep going.
Yeah, it's idiotic. And second thing, like somebody else said that, we have 100, the government's like putting in $100 billion into sort of trying to spy on you. Well, we do have a defense. It's called public key cryptography, right? PGP. It's using crypto. That stuff is rock solid. It's going to, unless they have like some crazy quantum computing that we don't know about, it's not going to be breakable. And that's the beauty of public key cryptography and all these security tools that we have. It's completely asymmetric. And you can encrypt things that are, you can encrypt things so that it's very easy for you to produce, but very difficult for someone to break. And, there's a great prize out to anyone that can break it. You can steal whatever Bitcoins you want. So, I mean, that's another really good thing. Yeah, I like with respect to all this, the thing that I want to relate it back to Bitcoin a little bit. This is why I have a hard time putting my trust in anybody, right? Like including the government, right? Like there's a lot of people that are like, oh, you can trust the government. They have your best interests at heart or something like that. And I'm like, no, they have all the access to all this information, and there's a strong temptation to use it for nefarious purposes or for personal gain or whatever. And this is why I don't think, like, even within the Bitcoin community, I don't think we should be putting all our trust into the Bitcoin core developers or to Roger Ver or whatever, right? It's idiotic to put all your trust into one person. This is why it's so important that we have code that's open source, right? There are altcoins that are closed source. I'm like, I would never touch them in a million years because they could have a backdoor that just steals all your money. And in the same way, like, maybe we shouldn't trust the government so much. Maybe this, I know our panelist Chris said that, ordinary people don't really care. Well, they're going to start to, because at some point, maybe your tax returns get leaked somewhere, right? Like there's enough like IRS targeting and things like that. Where it's becoming more and more politicized. It's like I don't like you politically, so I'm going to release this stuff. And it will bite you. It might not have bitten you yet, but it will very soon enough. And I hopefully this is what happens with the public.
Chris, real quick, anything to respond for that? To respond?
Yeah, I was going to point people in some, which you can type in DuckDuckGo or your favorite search engine that doesn't spy on you. Just look up Kutchkovsky principles, and this is kind of what everyone's been talking about, but essentially an ideal maximally secure system should be completely transparent. The enemy should know everything about the system. And the problem is that this doesn't really work if you're a private company, you've got VCs backing you. There's always, in order to make a profit, you have to kind of have some secret sauce. You have to have something you can keep on a back end, an obscure kind of, some kind of RESTful API service that you're offering. And you can open source some parts of it, and you can put, the library onto GitHub, and it can kind of look open source. You can appeal to those open source developers, and they can kind of feel comforted by that. But us watching it, it's like people that like Linux hardened and the kind of like weird distros, and they don't realize that there aren't very many people looking at this code. So it's all very well saying something is open source, but if you don't have many eyes, there's really no point. In fact, the open source factor just gives a false sense of security. And I totally agree with what that last chap saying was about. People will care when their dick pics and their tax returns get shared. That can't happen soon enough, in my opinion. Like, that needs to happen more. So maybe these hackers are actually doing us a service right now. If you could just up your game, that'd be fantastic, and just get it all out. Let's just be taken to the brink so that everyone, because education is hard, right? And people need a motivation to be educated. Education isn't marketing. It's not like just giving somebody a commercial message so they buy your product. I'm talking about like teaching somebody, not for my personal benefit, but for theirs. Like, I'm teaching you how to use this computer for your benefit. And we don't have that. People know how to drive cars. There was a time when you didn't know how to drive, and there's a time when you did. That was painful, but you still went through it because it was worth it. And people need to be shown that ROI. They need to be shown that this is worth you learning.
Yeah. The fappening was probably a better educational resource for people on learning about their privacy than anything else.
Right.
Just make sure to keep your porn in cold storage, people, as Joe in the chat said. That cracked me up pretty good. No, I keep my porn in my brain wallet, so I'm good. So, sorry, Andrew, I think we got to circle back to you. I think you had one more point to make.
So like the night before this happened, I was already up. I was talking to various security researchers because I was doing I started taking on clients that I'm hacking individually, and they always say look at the thorn in your eye before you try to judge someone else, basically. And I was actually I had Chris run a hash for me against a Mac DMG. So I was looking for people that were tweeting online. He happened to be up, and I needed somebody that knew a thing or two about security. So the night that happened, I sent him a screenshot of my machine, and I was like, yo, does Mac OS usually enter into negative time remaining during an install? And he goes, and I go, that's what I thought. We need to check this out. So I was up for 24 hours before it happened. I was freaking out. I called Apple, demanded that they escalate me to a freaking engineer. I sat there for 3-4 hours, and I had already hypothesized the existence of an NVRAM 0-day that would affect
the actual EFI firmware, the UEFI firmware deal, and install itself in the partition. Literally, I go and read the actual CIA exploit, and it's a guide on exactly what I theorized exists. I wasn't even surprised. I was just more of like, oh, this is really convenient. I can start reverse engineering this. And that's the level of numbness I'm at. Wasn't even surprised that I was close to being right. I was like, oh, I thought this would be there. It is there. That makes sense. Let's like keep going. And what really bothers me about that is, like, first of all, you're right. Security tools are a solution unless your firmware is rooted and every action you do on your machine is completely logged, broadcast somewhere else, and it's undetectable that it's being broadcasted to somewhere else. And these are the type of adversaries, when they get this low of a level on you, they're not going to steal your coins today. They're not going to steal your coins unless it's a lot of coins to be stolen. And what they're going to do is they're going to have, I mean, they have like basically a super root position in the sense that it's worse than being rooted. It's like having a corrupt soul in a sense.
Well, they have the people at the companies, like, they don't even need to root you. They can ship the hardware rooted, right?
No. I mean, dude, what I'm saying is, well, I mean, first of all, you may have nothing to hide, but imagine if your sister or your daughter or your wife or just someone you care about is watching Netflix while taking a bubble bath some night and their camera is automatically turned on and they don't even know it. I mean, think about like just everyday situations where you have devices around you, because we offload a lot of our thinking and processing onto these machines more than we should. Like, obviously I don't, but like people do. And there's nothing wrong with that because that's what the machines are designed to do. They're like candy for the mind. That's what they do. And so there is something to hide in that, you know, you don't want to all of a sudden have something to hide because they create something to hide just from their voyeurism of being a hacker or being somebody doing mass surveillance. What's pissed me off about the CIA is if you're going to do something like this, respect what you're doing. If you're going to work with zero-day viruses, treat it like a freaking retrovirus. Have a facility with Faraday cages, with freaking make your contractors change clothes. Have a standard of protocol of what you're wearing when you go in to do this stuff. The walls are not in my room behind me, because as I'm taking on clients, I'm installing Faraday cage netting around the entire office that I'm working in, because I don't want to risk trying to hack someone to make them safer and then having them accidentally get hit because I myself am hit. And that means
the real Mr. Robot. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, it's just really irritating when you look at it that way because of how lax they were about it, how much money they were willing to put in. I mean, even if they didn't have the 0 days at the beginning of the program, when you put $100 billion into a program to create this stuff, that's like saying, let's make weaponized Ebola and let a bunch of 19-year-olds like also take a job somewhere else when they're done and not follow up on what the hell they're doing. I mean, that's ridiculous. You know, and last, like, how could you be hit? Have you ever gone to the airport ever? Have you ever checked a bag at the airport? You're like,
I have.
Last time I went to the airport and checked a bag, the TSA had a contractor company search my entire bag. They gave me a nice little letter on the inside saying they didn't steal anything. They didn't take anything. But if you have a Thunderbolt port on any of your machines, the Thunderbolt port actually acts as an extension to the motherboard. And what that would allow someone to do with one of these EFI exploits that was available in the CIA documentation is actually take a modified like a Thunderbolt to Ethernet cable, and actually, well, what it is whenever you stick it in, there's no firmware password on the Ethernet cable itself. And then you're actually able to side load in firmware level exploits that would bypass your firmware password by having the machine for just a couple seconds and being able to turn it on with that plugged in and yank it out. You would never know this exploit is there. You'd never be able to remove it. It would cost you $5,000 if it was a brand new MacBook Pro. And this is stuff that you have to do when you go to an airport. I told a buddy of mine the other day, I mean, how do you know they don't have a little dude in the x-ray machine just like plugging in cords? It's not that they do, but like, you don't know. You don't go through the x-ray machine. There could be a little guy in there. So, I mean, like
child labor. Like
I'm just saying, you're forced to make yourself vulnerable to an evil maid attack every time you do air travel. And I mean, like, Peter Todd messaged me a while back when he was crossing over the border because he was worried about his ThinkPad. And I sent him like exploits that would have been things that could have been exploited on his machine if they just had his machine for 5 minutes. And we went through that, and he was like, oh shit, I got to do this, this, and this now. And that's terrifying when you factor in that the entire world has been subjected to this now. And think about what happens when the foreign, because our senators and congressmen don't even know what the hell this is right now. Think about what happens when people in other countries figure out what the hell this is, and then realize that this is 1% of what is to come. We might finally have a full-blown cyber war declared, and we just neutered a highly politicized bureaucracy that would, like, what's the point of keeping them now? I mean, I'm dead serious. I am really worried if we do not make a new branch of the military and come up with an actual strategy and policy on how we do this stuff. Because if we're gonna do it, we got to do it a certain way. And I mean, otherwise.
Right. And that's why I'm hoping like some kind of digital Geneva Convention or something like that will come into play. Any comment on that at all, or?
That's irrelevant. That's just people. Like, I thought the Scaling Bitcoin conferences were pretty dumb too. When people get together and they say they want to do some kind of conference related to something, they're not writing code when they're doing it.
But look, man, if people want to get together,
I would join the military. I'm not going to go to the Geneva Convention to like watch a bunch of people get on stage and just like jerk off to themselves talking.
Come on, man, they got speeches.
For the purpose of
how are you going to prove a negative anyway? How are you going to prove that you're not producing X, right? Like, that's impossible. Unless there's a proof that you're doing it, then you can't. You're just relying on someone's,
Guys, they have speech. Right? They have speeches. They have people write speeches for them. They got a big room. They got websites. They got blogs. They can prove a negative, right? I mean, they don't have any proof, but they can prove a negative, right? I mean,
we don't have any zero-day exploits. Yep.
I would say I think they should say we do have zero-day exploits, but we guard them at the same level we guard frickin' bird flu and
absolutely
stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's how it should be treated, because you know what's going to happen? These are going to converge, and shit's going to get bad, like really bad in the future. It's just, I mean, imagine DNA sequencing code running into some Zeus virus and having all of your machines start mass producing retroviruses that actually attack people, and they thought they were software. Somebody's going to write a way to map, machine code to DNA someday. And if we don't have a protocol for handling computer viruses the way we handle retroviruses, it's not going to be good. It's not going to end well.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that would also make a really good Resident Evil movie. But really, though, I think we definitely need to keep an eye on these things. Tone Vase always talks about the equivalent that Bitcoin developers are working on, what the equivalent of people working on nuclear reactors, right? We have to treat this stuff with the care that it actually deserves and the care that it demands. We have to have nuclear scientists, basically like the equivalent of nuclear scientists working on Bitcoin. And that's what we have right now with Bitcoin Core. We have just data scientists and really smart people working on this. And then, we have the CIA just letting exploits just go all over the place. Go ahead, have a couple here. And so, like Andrew, that's a really good point to echo, is that we need to keep an eye on this thing now. Now that we know what we did wrong, okay, let's fix it. Let's do something about it. For God's sakes, let's all come together here and try to come up with some kind of rules or something that we can agree on to where we can minimize this disaster that's coming. And like you said, Andrew, if that means almost declaring a new branch of military or something, I mean, at this point, almost like we have to rethink how we're handling these types of exploits. Does anybody else have any other comments on that?
Yeah, I'm all for smoking a big bong and getting around a campfire and with the CIA and just broing down.
Why can't we all just freaking hold hands and sing Kumbaya, dude? I don't know for the life of me. I guarantee you, I bet you if the terrorists just smoked a little bit more weed, maybe we'd all get along. No.
One last thing. The CIA is not supposed to target U.S. citizens. but they were paying for 0 days to be left open in iOS 4 back in 2010. iOS only had 14% of the global market share in 2010. Who the hell were they using iOS 4 0 days on in 2010? I mean, it's not like it was when they released the golden iPhone. That's when China really took off with the iPhone. In 2010, it was mainly United States citizens that had iPhones, and they were paying to leave vulnerabilities open in the predominant phone used by our market in terms of like who was doing business. And I'm calling complete bullshit that this was used on people of other nations. And even if it was, like the fact that they were leaving the vulnerability open and not offering some method of defense for us, no, I'm calling BS. I think it's, I mean, I think people need to go. I think people need to go to jail over this.
I think it's pretty much a given that they've done something wrong, and I don't think it's that much of a shocker to most of us that bureaucrats are violating their own rules. Yeah, probably true. Yeah, but I don't know. It's not. Maybe I'm jaded, but it's not that shocking to me.
That's clearly we're pretty jaded at this point if we don't care that our freaking TVs are listening to us. I mean, I think we've definitely hit a point, hit a wall where it's we're either going to do something or we're all going to just let it happen. And so far, it seems we're leaning more towards the let it happen. But it's also because we can't really see like kind of behind the scenes of what's going on. We can't see what's going on in the CIA. All this stuff is freaking hidden from us, it's most of the stuff is at least is hidden behind doors, behind closed doors. So it's kind of going to probably be up to us to take this matter in our own hands. Oh, like you guys said, I'll echo it again. Use open source software. Try to use open source hardware. Like let's get this all in the hands of everybody so that everybody's watching over everybody else's shoulder. Let's stop closing the doors and let's develop this stuff together. So we'll see where we go. Does anybody else have any comment on Vault 7? Vault 7. Okay, cool. So we can move on to our last and final topic. Looks like the chat is still hopping. We got over 170 people here watching us live. If everybody could go out and share out the show, tweet out the show, I'll let everybody know here we're talking Bitcoin. Give us a thumbs up, give us a thumbs down, and if you can, definitely hit that subscribe button. I mean, we got Beauty on in the chat. One of my favorite Twitter Bitcoin people on Twitter. This guy tweets out some awesome stuff. You guys need to follow him, though I can't ever remember how to spell his damn username. But so please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the World Crypto Network. We're moving things, we're breaking things, we're starting to change things, and we're trying to make it as best we can. So give us a thumbs up. That helps us get into people's streams and helps the show spread. So we really appreciate everybody here. And again, I'd just like to appreciate say thanks again to my guests for joining, even though I was like an hour plus late from the travel plans. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us. And we'll move on here to our third and final topic. This is an article written by panelist here, Jimmy Song. I really like this article for a number of reasons. It seems to echo kind of, it might be like a small blocker article maybe, but I don't think so. I think it really kind of brings us all together and kind of echoes kind of maybe what we've all been thinking but wanting to say. It's called Bitcoin Realism, or how I learned how to stop worrying and just love 1 megabyte blocks. It might be a small blocker, but if you read it, you'll see that I think that it's not just a small blocker. And so I want to have kind of Jimmy just intro it and talk about it, and then after the panelists are done commenting, I kind of want to read just a couple things from the article, just a couple of my favorite parts from the article, and specifically in the manifesto. But go ahead, Jimmy, just tell us what prompted you to write this article? Why did you write this article, and really what do you want us to take away from it?
Yeah, great question. This is sort of in my series of articles. I don't know if you've seen the other two. There was why Bitcoin will scale without SegWit or Lightning. There was another one on, why transaction capacity doesn't really matter. And then this was sort of the final of that series. And this one in particular was about, just why the governance around Bitcoin is so crucial to what it stands for. And I wanted to sort of bring this whole debate back to a ground where I think we can find some common ground with everybody, right? Like, a lot of people that come into Bitcoin sort of have libertarian-ish values, and I tried very hard in this article to relate what the dangers are of continuing this very damaging, I think, well, not too damaging in terms of price, but just sort of in community cooperation. what I thought could be agreed upon with everybody, and go on from there. And this is what I came up with. So yeah, that was sort of the idea behind it.
Awesome. And before we go to the other panelists, I just want to read a couple of things that I think are important to take away from the article. One of my favorite things is in the manifesto, it says consensus is a feature, not a bug, right? There's supposed to be a very high burden to change the law. And then in parentheses, you put code, because that's kind of what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is actually the manifestation of law as code. And another one, of course, is my favorite. Innovation should be left to the market. I believe that there are lots of entrepreneurs in this community that are looking for opportunities to make money by solving problems. That's what Andreas likes to say too. Where you guys see a problem, entrepreneurs see an industry. And so, that's definitely something that I really liked. So we'll go with Alan next on if you can comment on this article and what does he think about Bitcoin realism, right? Like, should we stop worrying about the 1 megabyte blocks? What do you think about this article, Alan?
Yeah, I think June did a great job. It's a great article. I mean, the beauty of Bitcoin in general is, you have all these different parties, interests have to align, so the miners can't take it over, the users can't take it over, the developers can't take it over. And so, I mean, in my opinion, okay, let's say, Bitcoin is money. It is in a lot of senses. Like, most important things to me are confidence and trust. So, it's, the reason the price is where it is partly because, we've had a good run here with a network that has very high integrity, that's secure, that, people are gaining confidence in with every day that passes, that we don't, knock on wood, have some kind of hack or anything. So, I think that in my mind takes precedence over anything else. I mean, you have to have confidence, you have to have trust. Nothing should be rushed. Nothing should get by without being peer reviewed. And do I like seeing people waiting for multiple blocks to get transactions in? I don't love it, but I think it's like Jimmy said. I would rather stay where we are now than do anything hastily that would affect the integrity of the network, which I think, to me, that's priority.
Absolutely. And it really does seem like, everybody on the big block side just wants to nail this network down. Like, they just want Visa level transactions tomorrow, right? They want the whole planet using Bitcoin like right now. And all the security people and all the developers are telling them, hold on. Just hold on 1 second, you guys. I mean, this. I really like to echo your point there. This is a multi-billion-dollar network now. I mean, we were at 20 billion at some point. I just don't think that any features, especially as important as block size, need to be hastily rushed in there. We need data. We need all these different things, and SegWit, is definitely something that can actually have an effective increasing size inside the blocks. Up to 3 megabyte and stuff. And so we'll go with. We'll go with Chris next on this, on what he thinks on this article. But it just kind of seems to me that everybody just wants to rush in. What do you think about this article, Chris? And should we stick with 1 megabyte blocks forever? What's the deal, Chris?
I don't like drama, and I don't like controversy. I think it can be fun sometimes, but I think part of what's making this situation worse is this false dichotomy in this presentation of warfare. I think it's made worse by microblogging. It's made worse by this sort of false concision that we have with platforms like Twitter. It's easy to have an opinion. It's easy to get on social media and start blasting off on your mouthpiece and have an opinion. Everyone's got an opinion. It's much harder to come face to face with the physics of the universe, and that's what you are as a developer. Engineering is about fault tolerance. It's about bringing the needs of a user together with the affordances of the physical environment that you live in. And let's talk about affordances for a minute, right? This book has many affordances. Bought it today in a bookstore. I mean, I can read it like a book. I can burn it for some heat, or I can use it as a paperweight. It doesn't work so well as a doorstop. I did try. It's just a paperback, so it's not really going to work so well. And so when we're talking about like block size, yeah, sure. I don't mind hearing Roger Ver's opinion. I just don't only want to hear his opinion. And when it comes to like arguing over just complete red herrings like censorship. Well, imagine if you know, Thamus had never done any kind of moderation on our Bitcoin, and every, you know, big blocker, so to say, could have had that say. But essentially, you would have ended up with our BTC, right? That's what our Bitcoin would have turned into had you just allowed everyone to come in and just flood this every conversation with this issue. And the question for me really comes down to, when I'm listening to another person, and I always start by listening first, is, you know, does this person want power? The reason why I tend to side with articles like Jimmy's and the one, you know, and the so-called small blockers, although I'm not a small blocker, I want bigger blocks eventually. It's the timetable I think most of us disagreeing on. What I'm thinking about is what does this person want power? If somebody wants power, I'm instantly suspicious. And it doesn't matter whether it's an individual and a tyrant, or whether it's a member of a mob who wants to use the word democracy as a veil for actually, I want to have a say. It's like the minority shareholder who only bought shares in your company just so he could troll you at every meeting. You know, it's like, I just bought one token share just so I could turn up at this meeting and troll you really hard and tell you what I think you should do as an engineer. But you're not the one that's going to sit in the computer and like write that code. And you're not the one that's going to have to debug when it won't compile. You're not going to be the one up at 4 a.m. So I think that somebody, you know, really for me to really listen to somebody at length on an issue as complex as this, I want them to have, you know, skin in the game. I want them to be a good deal smarter than me. And I've said already that I'm not going to get into the mudslinging on like Reddit and, you know, these kind of like, I do sometimes laugh at some of the stuff that Samson Mao tweets and stuff like that. I'll admit I'm human. But I don't like all this mudslinging. I don't like the fact that you can't have a conversation without losing friends about on this particular issue. I don't like the fact that everyone's just falling out of it. We just don't know how to disagree properly. We're too busy addressing personality. We're too busy addressing tone. And I think the reason why that happens in any kind of dispute is because people enter that dispute with this fear that this will never be resolved peacefully. And so they go straight for the violence. They go straight for the aggression, because it's like, I don't know how to communicate my ideas and make sure that I'm heard without the possibility of us never speaking again, or this being a permanent separation. And when the stakes are so high, sometimes we fall into akrasia, right? Akrasia means like self-sabotage. So we start to do things that are even detrimental to ourselves, like, you know, severing relationships and blocking one another on Twitter. It's really fucking childish, like grow the fuck up. So that's why I don't particularly engage on, you know, on social media. I will respond to a question like this on a video show where I've got the message space to go into more nuanced and complex answers, and I hope I've done that.
Absolutely. Like, you know, this is something that you just can't really get across in 140 characters, and communication, I think everybody can agree, like, might be there's room to improve there, you know, between the developers and the regular people, because, you know, by nature, developing is freaking hard. You know, I'm a web developer, and I can tell you this shit is not easy. This is so difficult. And then you got these people like Roger Ver or like other people. They're like, I'm an economic coder, or, you know, these other people that they claim to have some kind of say over developers when they don't program. It's just really difficult for me to listen to these people when they don't understand that one little thing and the goes awry and the whole thing is broken. Like you said, Chris, I mean, they're not sitting in the seats of the developer. They're not trying to compile this thing. And at the end of the day, when Bitcoin needs to work globally, I mean, we've never had anything like Bitcoin ever before in the history of mankind. And so at the end of the day, when this thing needs to work, we need to make sure it works. And if that means, you know, moving up the layers, up the stack, like we did with TCP/IP, and have all these different layers like Lightning and such, then that's what we got to do. But for now, we are continuing to grow, we are continuing to scale, and we are continuing to work on this. And I think that's just something that this article kind of brings home. It's like, you know, consensus is a feature, not a bug. This stuff takes a while. This is not a democracy, and we need to respect the developers, and we need to respect each other and each other's opinions. And so I think we are kind of coming to a halt now. You know, now that the ETF thing is over, we can kind of refocus this. And obviously the deadline for SegWit is this year, and the conclusion of that is going to bring us forward. So it's never the end. You know, it's really just a new beginning, and we're all here for the ride. And I just hope that you know, we can all respect each other and figure this out together, because this is amazing. Bitcoin is why we're all here. Bitcoin is going to really change the world. And I think that's something that we all Bitcoiners believe. So very cool stuff. So thanks so much, guys. Does anybody have anything else to comment on this article?
Yeah, I want to. Oh, go ahead, Andrew. You can go first.
Yeah, I was supposed to say, I want to say hey to Tristan and Tyler. They're watching. They're big Bitcoin fans. It's their first time to see the show. But yeah, I'm gonna have the most controversial view of all this. It's gonna piss everybody off. It's gonna be pretty good.
Oh God, here we go.
I mean, account for replays and fork, and call it a decentralized pull request. And if the value switches to your chain, that's a merge, and that's it. Otherwise, shut up. Just like fork, account for replays, lobby exchanges, prove your point, and be done with it. But don't waste 4 years of my life.
Bravo. This is why
conversation. I have enough to deal with freaking bankers, blockchainers, hackers, for every other thing you can imagine, people that don't understand it, people that are just trolling, to have to deal with people doing power grabs. And if we're going to have, if we're going to start making it really confusing, because most people don't even know what Git is, the fork terminology there, and then we're going to have hard forks and soft forks is a whole nother thing. So it's like, I forked Bitcoin, I submitted a PR, but if it messes up, it could have a hard fork, or we might have to do a soft fork. Like, people get confused when you use fork 3 times, and then you add user activated soft fork. Now we're specializing the type of forks that we never do. I mean, no. What you need to do is account for replays, and if you don't, Coinbase learned this, if you don't, I'm going to make you pay for it, because I'm going to figure out how to route it through multiple exchanges, and then I'm going to tell everyone how to do it. Account for replays, fork it, and then wait to see if the holders move all of, what you would have happen is they would dump their main Bitcoin, their main chain Bitcoin, and buy more of the resulting chain, like the new chain, because they would see all of the value moving there eventually. And if this was a normal process, wasn't tabooed, I think that a lot of this would go way smoother. And if you change the Genesis block, then no, I don't approve of what you're doing. But if you account for replays and just fork, it'd make everything go away. We could focus on other stuff, and maybe we'd have 4 different solutions going on, and maybe we'd actually find the best one. That's just how I view it.
No, for sure. Like this is why, Andrew, this is why I ask developers. This is why I pretty much only try to listen to developers on the debate, because this is how you guys think. You guys think in terms of solutions, actual solutions. You write code to make those solutions a reality. And this is what SegWit is to me. This is a reality, that this is the best kind of solution that we got from developers. And so, like you said, I think everybody's with you at this point. I think literally the whole community is realizing that, hey, Bitcoin Unlimited and others, if you don't like it, fork right now. We double freaking dare you, right? Like let's fork and just get over with it. So it's a very awesome.
You don't have to hire and a really loud neighbor who like doesn't turn their music down until we all decide we like the same music. I mean, it's a dictatorship. Fork and own your version of Bitcoin and stand by it. And if the whole community follows, then call yourself Bitcoin Jesus. But otherwise, just chill. I mean, crucify yourself and then come back to life. Actually do it.
All right, I would like to
real quick. Sorry, Jimmy. Sorry, I gotta say one thing. From Bitcoin Jesus to Bitcoin Judas, what a fall. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Jimmy.
So, I want to disagree with my panelists here, because I do think that that's sort of the mentality that'll lead to war, and I think that will cause an enormous destruction of value. And that was sort of my third point in the Bitcoin Realism Manifesto, is that war should be avoided. And the reason is because, like, in a real war between, like, the one that we had in Iraq for I don't know how many years, it costs a lot of money and it destroys value. And I am positive that's what would happen with Bitcoin. Now, I could give lots of reasons for this, but I mean, even in the one that Andrew suggested, which is like Bitcoin Unlimited, go bring people to your side, do a hard fork, and shut the fuck up, right? Like that's sort of his attitude. I get it. But it's not so simple, right? I assume that, like, I see tweets like this all the time. If only this happened, then this other thing will happen, or then the mining power will shift here, and then like price will go up here. You don't know that. This is a dynamic system, and dynamic systems, if you study complexity at all, are extremely sensitive to initial conditions. And anything if you tweak anything slightly, it's going to just change things all over the place. And so in that way, I don't agree with that. But I want to point to something that Greg Maxwell wrote earlier this week. This was after I published my article, and I thought he had a really beautiful way of sort of talking about democracy in Bitcoin. And this is what he says. It pains me to see people arguing to turn it into something much weaker on the basis of confusion or worse. I've many times seen people confusing hash power, a self-selecting pay to vote, for democracy. And I've seen people being deluded into thinking that democracy is superior to autonomy, when at best, democracy is the least awful option, when autonomy and true personal freedom are not realistically possible. The major lesson of Bitcoin, just like that of strong encryption before it, is that autonomy is possible in many things where few suspected it was before, including in almost every aspect of the operation of money we choose to use. We shouldn't let this kind of confusion go silently uncontested. And this is, I think, this is how I would tie it into my. We're talking about autonomy, personal freedom. I mean, we're talking about having autonomy, but also respecting others' autonomy. And I think that's what consensus is. It's respecting everyone's autonomy. Miners absolutely have the right to reject SegWit. Developers absolutely have the right to say, you know what, this is the best technical solution that we think it is. Users absolutely have the right to buy and sell coins. That is their right. And I mean, like, to some degree, I want to say Thamos has the, right to go and censor whoever he wants off of his forum, right? Like, that's the right he has. He isn't the U.S. government. He's not violating any laws by doing that. But you as a user don't have to go on those places, right? Like, most of the people complaining seem to have this idea that, hey, you know what? I have a right to be heard at this forum, and that's simply not true, right? It's a private thing. You don't have a right to anything except maybe in certain other areas. And that's what I think we need to come towards. And what's clarifying to me about Greg's comment is that really we're fighting this battle, this block size war, sort of in the language of democracy, right? Like in terms of like you versus us, very two-party, very Republican, Democrat, or something like that. And that's not going to work with consensus, because consensus is all about fighting for everyone's rights and making sure that everyone is satisfied. And we're like personally attacking each other, like, making like the easiest way to get like a high score on either Reddit or Twitter is look how stupid those people are, or look how much of a hypocrite these people are. And that's just ridiculous, right? Like, that's not going to help anyone get to consensus. That's not going to make Roger Ver agree with you. That's not going to make Jihan Wu agree with you. That's not going to make Greg Maxwell agree with you. And this is why I think this like hard fork stuff is so dangerous, because if we do hard fork and we do come to 1 or 2 Bitcoins, I think what we end up with are 2 very autocratic coins, right? Like, we're going to end up with like Maxwell coin or Ver coin, right? It's not going to be Bitcoin any longer, at least for me. Because like there's a lot of risk involved with trusting one party to do stuff. The whole idea of Bitcoin, the whole reason why I think it's valuable is because it's decentralized, and not everyone, like gets to like, you need agreement of everyone before you change it. And this is why I think the market has an important role to play going forward in solving a lot of these problems.
Yep, absolutely. Does anybody have anything to comment on that? Andrew?
Vic, you're talking about, I mean, that's the confusion there. There's only 3 rights, if we're going to even say there are rights in Bitcoin. It's the right to broadcast a transaction, it's freedom of speech, and it's very, very limited in what you can say. And the vocabulary is Bitcoin script. You have the right to choose your Genesis block, so freedom of religion, and then you're going to have the right to choose what you pay for your taxes, and the powers that be are going to determine whether or not they agree with that. And I mean that's it. You choose where you want to send your money. You choose whether or not you're going to pay taxes, and you choose what the base of the chain is. It's not, decentralization and democracy are not the same thing. In fact, they're conflicting concepts. decentralization means that I can fork and there's nothing you can do about it, and that's it. And I think people are confusing democracy as though we have to all get along and actually do this for anything to happen. And I mean, that's what the big issue of the block size debate has been this entire time, is this belief that we actually have to get along, because it's a trustless protocol. I don't have to trust Maxwell Coin or trust Vercoin. I can just fork it, call myself Satoshi Nakamoto, put it on the mailing list, run the chain, do the work to lobby exchanges, and that's it. And you wanna know why I haven't done it? Because I don't mind waiting 10 minutes for a transaction to go through right now, because I'm fairly patient. I'm writing some code, push a transaction out, it's done. I mean, it's.
How do you buy your coffee, Andrew?
How do I buy my coffee? I would use something like Coinbase, and I would use my Shift card, and I would centralize a reserve amount for the purpose of doing that. And eventually we'll come up with a better solution if a nation state collapses and it gets weird. But I mean,
I agree.
You don't have to agree. And if I hard fork and I do a minority fork, the base chain is perfectly fine. That's the beauty of Bitcoin. The only thing at risk is the jackass that forked it and didn't have it become the majority chain. That's it. It's his reputation that's at risk, and that's all that's at risk. So yeah, the community is toxic, but we built a protocol because we don't trust each other. What did you expect? I mean,
that's such a good point. We don't have to trust each other at all. We only have to trust the longest chain, I guess.
I don't trust any of you guys.
I don't.
A little bit.
I don't even. I don't.
About 10 minutes
private.
I don't trust you at all, Andrew. I don't trust you either, man. No, no. I think that's such a good point. And definitely Beauty on in the chat is agreeing with Andrew like crazy, like music to his ears. And a lot of that was music to my ears as well. But I definitely believe, I definitely like the point that that Jimmy made and the points that you made, Andrew. And really, I guess the bottom line is that that no one wins in a war, right? No one wins in a war. If we're going to create a war, which is what we've created, no one wins.
The winner wins in the war. Read Machiavelli. There's a whole set of strategies on what to do after your hard fork wins. Did you acquire it from, having a bunch of money that your dad gave you? Did you acquire it by taking over a chain that was previously ruled by someone else? Read the book. If you want to have power, there's guides of how to have power. I mean,
there's definitely a winner in the war.
I don't want to go to war, but I will. I mean, I see Bitcoin as freaking arms, and I see Bitcoin as protected by my right. And if
this is
war over Bitcoin by forking, I'll fork. And you can bet your bottom dollar I'll fork if this goes on for another couple months. And that ETF stuff, those things will never happen. I will freak the whole financial world out because that is Bitcoin. I can do whatever I want with the code, and you guys could hate me and villainize me, but some people will eventually get sick of the BS and they'll go, hey, let's try out Lightning Network. Let's do some sidechain stuff. And if that doesn't get what we need done, maybe we bump the block size up by forking off that fork. But no one goes to it.
Can I just come in?
Go ahead, Chris. Do it. Real quick before you say that, I do have to say that I do agree. I think that we all have the right to bear Bitcoin. But go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to quote and say peace is not the absence of conflict. I don't think the issue here, we're already at war. I think we're at war with many different entities, but I don't think that wanting peace is the solution. If you want peace, you're just going to end up with more conflict in the long run. It's really how we disagree without resorting to violence. And violence can be, inflicted online, although it's difficult to punch somebody over the internet. One can be trolled. But ultimately, I think this is more about how we debate these issues. And I think, we need to get off of social media and these microblogging platforms. And I think we just need more face-to-face meetings. We need to make sure that we're engaging with people that are sincere in their argumentation, and they're not just trying to promote an agenda. And I absolutely agree with Andrew. Bitcoin could have been forked at any time in its history with a full UTXO set intact. It's always been a risk, and if it's not threatened and if it's not actually tested, then it's always going to be a vulnerability. So yeah, actually, I wouldn't mind seeing this play out because I want to know that it's going to be resilient to this kind of attack in the future.
That's an argument. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I want to say that I never said that there's no winners in a war. I just said war would result in an enormous destruction of value. Whether or not that's useful to you is entirely a calculation that every user will have, and miner and developer will have to make for themselves. What I will say though is that I hesitate. Like the reason why people don't hard fork all the time is because no one's going to follow them, and because they don't have enough mining power, or because they don't have any development power or any users, right? You need all three to move in order to have any chance at your hard fork working. Nobody's been able to get that coalition together. And, this is, I think, a point in the history of Bitcoin where that's actually possible, right? Like there are enough people on both sides where you might have enough users, enough developers, enough miners that can actually go off and do it on their own. And
lobbied the support for Ethereum Classics miners.
Huh? What's that?
They got the miners for Ethereum Classic.
I assume Alan's brother. I don't know.
I was in the telegrams with a couple other people pushing that the day of the hard fork. Like, it's not that hard to lobby the support. It's just not worth the active effort whenever there's like an actual plan in place and you realize what the problem is, and it'll either handle itself or it won't. It can be done.
Right.
I mean,
I guess the question is, why hasn't it been done? Why do you think
it takes time? It takes time. But go ahead, Andrew. Sorry.
I have better things to do, and I'd much rather be you do it because I can wait. I have no issue coding with what I have right now and building atop that. And like that's basically it. It's not pissing me off enough yet that I need Lightning Network and side chains.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, I mean, personally, like for now, like I'm definitely going to stick with wherever core goes. I'm going to go that way, wherever Bitcoin core goes. But obviously we can't, let the same development group be there forever. But for right now, for me, core and SegWit is kind of where I'm sticking with. So, and I think that's where for most people are sticking with. So if they want to fork, like you said, Andrew, let them fork. And we'll see, which way we go. But that is war, and that is just the way it is. This is a software war, right? So we hope Bitcoin survives, but I think we can all agree that Bitcoin really is just a honey badger, and it doesn't care, and it's gonna go. It's gonna take its hash work, its hashing, its users, its miners. It's gonna take it. It's gonna take it all, and it's gonna do whatever the fuck it wants with it, pretty much. So, but yeah.
Can I say one more thing? I had an idea a while back about, and this speaks to what Chris was saying. Like he wants people to have skin in the game, right, before they get to say stuff. So I was thinking about like doing this is an idea that came to me just a while back, where you would have a forum that has a proof of stake requirement, right? Where you log in, you can only log in if you have X amount of Bitcoin, or get a registration. So that proves that you at least have some Bitcoin as proof. Of course, you're giving up some privacy and things like that, but hey, it's a public forum. If you don't want to participate, you don't have to. And you can debate there, and your text is proportional to how much Bitcoin you actually own or something like that, so that you don't have sock puppets or any sort of like Sybil attack problem. You just have people that are speaking that have a proportional amount of stake in the game. And in that way, one thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention before, a lot of people sort of laugh at Mike Hearn when they see the tweet that says I sold all my Bitcoins maybe when it was like $400. I actually have a lot of respect for him, and I'll tell you why. It's because he put his money where his mouth is, and I will always respect that more than anybody that's just like bloviating on Twitter, right? Like he put his right or wrong, he said I am leaving Bitcoin, and I really believe this is true. And therefore, I am selling my coins. I'll respect that to the end of the world. And I hope that sort of conversation can happen in a forum, something like that.
Very interesting.
That's what you do in a user-activated hard fork, is you actually put your money on the chain, and you don't have to get a PHP or JavaScript website built. You just move your money where your mouth is, and then if people go, you're rich. And if they don't go, you go broke. That's it. That is absolutely it. It's atomized. It's quantified. That is at the base level exactly what it is. And we don't even know if he sold. The dude set up an entire media split with New York Times. So he was dumping his coin, and then started going up. Of course, he bought coin since then. If he's not a moron, he didn't buy any of the freaking. Oh, by the way, I got to say this. I was thinking about R3's name. It's got to be R cubed. First of all, because I couldn't think of anything for the 3. So I'm thinking it's remittances cubed. Got to thinking about what Corda could mean. Thinking Cord. Their freaking name, I think, is Q-Cord. Like blockchain cube cord. I think it's a remittance Q-Cord. He didn't buy any of the Q-Cord.
So I thought it was supposed to be pronounced receive. Or am I just
receive Q-Cord? I don't know.
Dude, nobody knows. That's
no
the
one
point. Nobody
Even they
knows.
don't know.
Exactly. Nobody knows, and that's why they keep it just R3. But
so I'm calling it until then.
Well, let me ask Alan. Did you have anything else to comment then, Alan, on what anybody said with the block size or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we've never been down this path before, so nobody has the balls to hard fork this at this point. I mean, it's, I kind of align with Jimmy. I mean, it would just be messy with a lot of collateral damage. So, Roger doesn't have the balls to do that. He's not doing that. None of these miners are going to do this. So we're just going to be stuck where we are right now, just bitching and complaining for months and months, Segway, I mean, no chance that's going to happen at this point, the way it looks. And I don't know, it'll be some kind of tipping point, I guess. But yeah, I spout off on Twitter and everything, and we all bitch and complain. There needs to be, there's some cultural divides here. There's language divides. There's got to be a lot more in-person meetings. But everybody has their motivations. I mean, the miners are killing it on fees right now. If you're a user and you're buying things every day like coffee and trinkets, then yeah, you're getting kind of screwed. Everybody has their own reasons and stuff. So, but yeah, I think there'd be tons of collateral damage with a hard fork, and I think everybody involved is just too smart for it to go there. So I doubt this is a real tangible risk right now. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think all the developers that are using Bitcoin or that will use Bitcoin, I think they're all just developing. They're not worrying too much about Sedgwick. They're not worrying too much about the drama. They have their heads down and they're building things because builders build things. That's what they do. So we're going to, like Andrew said, they're going to, if they do get sick of it, they'll go out there and start playing with Lightning and side chains, and they'll go out there and start doing stuff. Like Ryan Charles from Yours, he's doing something with payment channels for Yours, and he's not using Lightning. Developers will develop what they need to develop. And I think that's really important for people to understand too, if, when they start getting scared or something about stupid things that Roger says or other people say and things like that. So very good points. Does anybody else have anything else, or should we close this one out? Nope. Okay, cool. So before we close it out, I do just want to take 1 minute to talk about my San Francisco trip. I actually, so last Saturday night, we did a crowdfund for Chris Ellis to get Chris Ellis across the country over to San Francisco to meet with Thomas, Mad Bitcoins, and myself, and Blake Anderson, Bitcoin Blake on Twitter. And we just had a great time. I just wanted to say thanks, to everybody to help Chris fundraise on that. I'll let him speak on that too in a second, but I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for helping Chris with that. And we had such a great time over there. We went to the San Francisco Bitcoin meetup, and I think it was the Proof of Drink, and everybody was there. There was lots of people there. That we had a bunch of fans there. They came up to us and said they really liked the show, and that was really great. Really great to actually engage with everybody. Right there in San Francisco, and I hope to go to some more Bitcoin meetups as well. But that was just really fun. And Chris, let you say a few things. It was just really great to see you in person, and it was really great to see everybody in person. We had a great Bitcoin news, we had a great Bitcoin group. We had a great show there. The selfie you took was epic. Definitely going to store that in my photos, and I'll let you take it away, man.
Yeah, sure. Well, this is episode 1001 of the World Crypto Network. I want to thank everybody that's given us all their support over the years. We've been here since before NT Gox went down. We're very proud of it. It all started there with that hacking and the live streaming straight from the IRC channels to make sure everyone was getting the information. So for those of you who've been with us since the very beginning, thank you so much for your support, and thanks for donating. We proved that, a lot of people were like, oh, they're begging for money. And it's like, no guns were present in this transaction. Everyone donated because it was voluntary. I didn't have to force you, coerce you, or anything like that. It was called a value for value exchange. And in a world where we live in an internet where people don't expect to pay for things, that is a brave thing to ask for help. And I encourage you to do the same thing. Don't just point the fingers at us and say that we're begging. Do it yourself. Ask people for help. You want to go do something, you want to meet a colleague on the other side of the world, you want to do something together, do it. It's about action. Anyone can have an opinion on the internet. So I would absolutely say thank you to everybody. This is episode 1001.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, we did do the 1000th episode, and it was great. I just can't say enough good things about it. Meeting people on the internet, off the internet in real life is really cool. If it's not from Craigslist, I just got to say. So everybody meet your internet friends on in real life, and you'll have a great time. So thanks so much, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. We really had a great time. Thanks so much, Alan. Thanks so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate it, especially with the tardiness and everything of me. That was all my fault. So where can we find you, Alan?
Yeah, you'll find me on Twitter bitching about, people whining about Reddit mods and all this bullshit. Yeah, no, so, come check out BitPremiere as well. Things are picking up over there. I think the price is getting people to loosen up some coins a little bit, so check out BitPremiere, of course. And, we're going to have a partnership that's going to be getting launched pretty soon. Another big name out there in the space, so that'll be good.
Awesome, Alan. Yep. BitPremiere. You guys gotta check that out. You can buy like high-end Lamborghinis. You can buy all sorts of crazy, awesome stuff on there. So everybody check that out. And yeah, Alan, me and you, I think we're holding back the trolls at bay a little bit. I think we're doing an okay job. I think we're doing an okay job so far. So thanks so much for your tweets, man. And we have a great time on Twitter, man. That's awesome stuff. So thanks for joining us, Alan. Andrew, you bet, man. Andrew, where can we find you?
I'll be on Twitter until the stuff's over.
Right. Besides in the machines.
Yeah, I'll be around. I'll be doing stuff. The DeSantis on Twitter, but as soon as the Vault 7 stuff chills out, I'll disappear again. But
exactly. Andrew's always there when you need him. Only there when you need him. So very, very cool. Thanks, Andrew. It's been definitely nice seeing you on Twitter again, dude. Tweeting on the crazy stuff that's going around with Operation Security and information security. So it's really great to have you back on there. And then we'll miss you again until the next crisis. So thanks, man. Mr. Chris Ellis, such a good time, man. Thank you so much for having me over there and hanging out. And where can we find you, man?
Yeah. I'm at Mr. Chris Ellis on Twitter, and it was great to see you face to face. I only saw you a few hours ago. You literally here this morning. We woke up together, had coffee together, and now you're all the way in Vegas.
I know, man. That's why I was late for the show. Like I was on the airplane, and you got off the airplane. I'm like hustling, but I ended up pulling it through. I guess we had a great time. We have over 160 viewers right now, so I hope everybody had a great time. Jimmy Song, where can we find you, sir?
I'm on Twitter, Jimmy Song. Also on Medium, Jimmy Song. I'm also on GitHub, Jimmy Song. Yeah, so you can, I do a bunch of stuff, some open source stuff, whatever. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully that's enough for you to find me.
Awesome, Jimmy, and thanks so much for the articles, man. We love them. Keep them coming. We love the opinions. You need more followers on Twitter, so everybody needs to follow this guy on Twitter. He's got some great opinions. Thanks so much for being on the show, Jimmy. This is your first time, so hopefully you had a good time. We'll have to bring it back again. If you'll have us. So thanks so much, guys, for joining us in the chat. Like I said, over 160 viewers, over 180 at some point. Everybody's just giving me props up in the chat. So thanks so much, guys. We love you. Much love back to you. Thanks so much for joining us. We will be back here again, of course, in 2 weeks. And until then, guys, I guess just keep talking Bitcoin. Talk to you guys later.